Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to be going over discussion for problem one. Really quick before we get started, I just wanted to go over just some basic strategies for approaching regular expression or regex problems. Most of the time, these will either take the form of figure out if this expression that is provided has a match in a string. And then other problems will be try to figure out how to match this intended pattern. Um, the latter are a lot more difficult, but the former can get you started with trying to develop an intuition for how these meta characters can be really useful in helping us um, construct and match certain patterns. And we use this a lot in data processing, especially string processing for data 100. So yeah, getting started with problem one, it asks us the question, which strings contain a match for the following regular expression, 1 plus 1, and then a dollar sign. So right off the bat, we would, if you're reading this, your first thought is to go, oh, anything that contains 1 plus 1, right? But that's not correct, because you have to remember um, that we have these things called meta characters, which and that includes a plus sign, right? So whenever you see a meta character present, it's only ever read literally if a backslash comes before it. So if it doesn't include a backslash, then we are going to have to actually look at how the meta character functions within the regex pattern, not how it's taken literally. So now in this problem, when you see 1 plus, the meta character usually says, okay, whatever comes right before me, this is what I'm going to look at. And for a plus, it says pluses match preceding literal or sub-expressions one or more times. So that means that in order to match something, we're going to need to match the number one or more times. This then needs to be followed by another one. So let's just write this out in words. Number one plus or one or more times. Follow this with a 1, and because this 1 isn't followed by it is followed by a meta character, but it isn't followed by a meta character that says something about the number of times it occurs. So that means that our pattern needs to match it exactly once, and no less or no more than once. So follow this with exactly 1, 1, and then finally we have this dollar sign meta character. So when we look at this, okay, the dollar sign matches the position at the end of string character. What that means is the end of the string needs to be at the end of this pattern. So whenever we look for a pattern match, we have to find the end of the string there. So what patterns, which of these strings have this pattern? Well, we look at A, but A, so it has 1 plus 1 at the end. But as we said before, um, having a plus sign in our regex pattern does not mean that it will match a literal plus sign. It will just have an effect on the character that came before. So actually, our pattern that says we match the number one or more times, and then we follow this with exactly one other number 1, that doesn't have any room for extra characters. So in fact, our pattern has to have a bunch of 1s in a row and then the end of the string. Um, that means that, and then we say, okay, what if like this section at the very end could have that, right? Not including the plus sign because we don't have room for that in our pattern. But we have, you know, the number 1 and then the end of string. But the problem is that from the first part, we need to match the number 1 at least once, and then from the second part, we need to have at least one other 1. So that means we need at least 2 1s and then the end of the string. So neither of these neither the big nor the smaller um, like sections of this string fit that pattern. So we'll move on to B. For B, we have at the end of the string, we do have one number 1 that can match the first part of our pattern, right? And then we have another that can match the second, and then we have the end of string. So we will mark B down as a contender because to me this looks like it can match our pattern. And then finally for C, well, at the end of the string, we don't see any number 1s. We do see some number 1s at the very beginning, but they're not followed by not the end of the string. So that means that C is definitely not a contender. So that means we are left with B. And that marks the end of this problem. Please move on to the next video for the next solution.